Here is a language family you have probably never heard of, spoken today by almost 400 million people. It is called Austronesian, and it holds around 1,200 languages, roughly 1 in every 5 on Earth. You will hear them in Hawaii, among the Maori of New Zealand, across the Philippines and Indonesia, and as far away as Madagascar, off the coast of Africa. And every one of them traces back to a single starting point, this island, Taiwan. About 5,500 years ago, the ancestors of all those peoples began sailing outward from here. Long before Taiwan built the world's most advanced computer chips, long before it became one of Asia's richest societies, these were its first inhabitants, living here thousands of years before anyone arrived from China. So here is the question this episode asks. In a society now richer per person than Japan, how do the first peoples of the island live today? Today, Taiwan's indigenous peoples number 611,000, 2.6% of the island, across 16 officially recognized peoples. So has the island's wealth reached all of them equally? Look first at how long they live. In 2019, an indigenous person could expect about 73 years of life. For the population as a whole, it was almost 81. That is a gap of nearly 8 years, and it has barely moved in decades. Now their languages. Of the 16 indigenous tongues, 11 are severely or critically endangered. One of them, Aroa, has fewer than 10 fluent speakers left alive. That loss has a clear cause. Across the last century, the island changed hands, and each new ruler forced its own language on the classroom. Japan, which governed Taiwan as a colony until 1945, taught these children in Japanese. Then the Republic of China took over and taught them only in Mandarin Chinese, punishing those who spoke their own. So this is the picture. A rich society whose first peoples live shorter lives and are losing their languages. The obvious explanation would be simple neglect. But that is not what the record shows. Start with the 2 explanations people reach for first. The first is political exclusion, the belief that these communities were kept out of the vote. The record points the other way. When the Republic of China took control in 1945, indigenous people became citizens, and they were voting in local elections by the early 1950s. They also hold reserved seats, a fixed block of places in the legislature set aside for indigenous representatives. 6 of them today, and all of this came under the same martial law, the same 38 years of military rule that bound every other citizen. They were not handed democracy late. They received it on the same terms as everyone else. The second explanation is neglect, a rich society that simply looked away. But Taiwan built one of the most developed indigenous support systems in Asia. There is a cabinet-level ministry for indigenous affairs, a law that made all 16 indigenous languages national languages, extra university places for indigenous students, and in 2016, a formal apology from the President, on behalf of the state, for 400 years of harm. Very few governments have ever done that. So it is not the vote, and it is not indifference. Something else is missing. What is missing is the land. Begin with where indigenous people actually live. Most are in remote mountain townships and along the east coast, the areas left to them as settlers took the fertile plains over the centuries. And that single fact drives much of the gap. In those areas, jobs are fewer and lower paid. And while Taiwan's national health insurance covers everyone on paper, these districts have far fewer doctors and hospitals, so the coverage does not turn into real care. Researchers who study it are blunt. The gap in health between Taiwan's cities and its countryside is, in large part, an ethnic gap. This is not the story of a people who will not help themselves. It is the story of people pushed to the margins of the island and left with the weakest hold on its wealth. And the deepest form of that loss is still unsettled. After the 2016 apology, the government set out to map traditional indigenous territory. But the rules it issued in 2017 counted only government-owned land and left private property out, shrinking the recognized territory from 1.8 million hectares to 800,000, less than half. Indigenous activists set up camp in the center of the capital in protest and stayed there for years. Taiwan gave its first peoples recognition. It did not give back control of their land. To see what that missing piece means, compare Taiwan with China. China is about 91% Han Chinese. The remaining 9%, roughly 125 million people, belong to 55 recognized minority groups. China's system has been large in scale. For decades, it gave minorities real advantages: bonus points on college exams, an exemption from the one-child limit, and heavy state spending on roads, power, and poverty relief. Whole regions are designated as autonomous, run under their own local governing frameworks. In recent years, the emphasis has shifted toward a shared national identity, with more schooling in the common Mandarin language and a gradual phase-out of those exam bonuses. Beijing describes this as building one unified nation in which every group advances together. So the two societies stress different things. Taiwan puts its indigenous distinctiveness in the foreground, and China puts national unity in the foreground. And yet, underneath, they are doing the very same thing. Here is the same thing they share. Both governments use their minorities to make a claim about the nation. Beijing points to its 55 groups and says, "Look, we are one unified Chinese family." Taipei points to its indigenous peoples and says, "We were here long before China, so we are not simply Chinese." In each case, the first peoples become evidence in someone else's argument, and that lets us ask both societies the same fair question. Do these groups truly share in the wealth and in the power, or only in the symbolism? For Taiwan, the honest answer is specific. The vote came, the money came, the apology came, and it was meant. What has not come is the land and the control that goes with it, the right of a people to govern their own ground and decide their own future. Taiwan has made its first peoples into a story it tells about itself. The harder promise, to let them be the authors of that story rather than the evidence in it, is the one still unkept.